Good day, good people. I hope you are all well. I hope you all had a wonderful day. Tokozane Apsheni Lesedi. Today's topic is God is not a Christian. God is not a Christian. Yes, you've heard me right. Why do I say this? Ne? In fact, God is not a Christian. God is not a Muslim. God is not an African spiritualist. God is not a Hindu. God is He is not any of those religions that we all know. Why do I say that? Is because religions and, in fact, belief systems are a system put in place by human beings beo e leng hore modimo o ba file bohlale ba ho thusa batho ho understanda hore na modimo ke eng. So none of these religions or belief system can claim God. God is God. God, He is who He is, and is an entity on its own. But within all of these religions or belief system, you will find God. Why do I say that? It's because all these belief system are systems put in place for us to help us or to guide us on how can we connect with God? How do we know God? How do we create a relationship with Him? How do we connect with Him? You understand? God is not a Christian. God is not an African spiritualist. God is not a Muslim. God is not whatever belief system there is. But God, you within those belief systems, you'll find God. Because those belief systems are put there to guide us to have a relationship with God, to understand God, to know God for who He is. Now the reason why I'm talking about this is because lately there's been conversations or argument between, okay, God does not like this, God does not like that. When you are doing this, you are wrong. God does not like it. And even some even quote certain scriptures and say, because of a certain scripture, you are wrong in doing this. Because of certain things, you are wrong in doing that. No one can claim God between us. None of us can claim God. But what's important for us is to know who God is to have a relationship with Him and understand who God is to you. Because the relationship of a human being to God is a very special relationship and a personal one, which needs no one to understand it. My relationship with God is a personal relationship between me and Him. So I don't need anyone to try and understand it. I don't need it to make sense to anyone, because it does make sense to me. And how do we, another thing which we must talk about is how do we know that your belief systems is right or wrong? When you pray to God, when you do something and you expect an answer from God. When you are doing right, he or he is able to answer you and tell you, oh no, this is not how we do things. This is how we do things. The problem that we are doing is that we think that God only spoke during those times when the scriptures were being written, which is wrong. God spoke then, He is speaking now, and He will forever speak. And how He speaks to you will be different to how He speaks to other people. Right? So understand your relationship with God, understand who God is, and when you've done that, you don't need anyone. You don't need me to tell you who God is. You don't need a pastor. You don't need anyone to tell you who God is. And you can never be scammed or told otherwise by anyone. So let's normalize building a relationship with God. Let's not fall into a situation or a trap whereby we judge other religions by looking into by the way God speaks to us. Here is the thing. There's a scripture where which people like to use when Israel people were moving from Egypt to Israel, led by Moses. And when God, they will tell you, now on this scripture, this is what God said and said and said and said. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what God said to those people. Now, let me make an example with Nkgono Mantsopa. Nkgono Mantsopa was a leader as well. He was leading a certain nation. And God spoke to him in a different way. Now, the message that Nkgono Mantsopa will get will be different to the message that Moses got. Why? Because there were two different people in two different journeys leading two different people, né? to two different destinations. So now either one of them will not say you are wrong for doing 1, 2, 3 because God said to me this is what needs to be done. Nkgono Mantsopa cannot say to Moses you are wrong because of 1, 2, 3. And Moses cannot say to Nkgono Mantsopa you are wrong because of 1, 2, 3. Because God spoke to them differently. Their journey were different. They were leading two different people from two different spots to a certain spot. So let's move away from judging other people's belief based on what God said to certain people. We are two different people with two different journeys. We are different with different journeys and different everything. So you can't judge people by a mere scripture written in 2000 what years. Nna as a Sangoma, how God speaks to me, He speaks to me according to the relationship that I have with Him. And how He speaks to me will be different to how He speaks to a certain pastor or a certain bishop or whatever. And the message that I will get will be different to the message that the pastor will get, because we are two different people leading two different nations, right? To two different destinations. Now, how God uses us will be different. God will use me to lead a certain nation to a certain destination. God will use them from a certain destination from a certain point to another point. So don't say to me that I'm wrong in doing what I'm doing because a certain scripture says 1, 2, 3. The scripture speaks to you as a person. My belief system speaks to me, and we can't expect those beliefs to be the same. What's important from this is that we must learn to know who God is, understand our relationship with Him, and understand what God needs from us. You need one day as a person. Don't let. I can only guide you and show you who God is, but how you understand Him will be totally different to how I understand who God is. Why? Because we are different. So Muslim understand God from a Muslim point of view. There's nothing wrong with that. Christians understand God from a Christian point of view. African spiritualists understand God from an African spiritualist point of view, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we must move away, or we must leave this habit, or yes, a habit of trying to make ourselves as if we are the ones who God tasked to carry the keys to heaven. Or we must move away from acting as if we own God. No one owns God. No one tells God what to do. No one dictates to him what he does. And how he does it, he will do it on his own way. I know when I do wrong things, I will receive certain punishments, or maybe something will happen. Same way that Christians know, okay, when you do 1, 2, 3, this is what will happen to you. Same as where Muslims know, okay, when you do 1, 2, 3, this is what will happen to you. And now, and another thing, but by saying this, now I'm a church goer, guys. I go to church Sundays, and I'm also a Sangom. I believe in God very much. He has shown me huge things and miracles. He has done a lot of things for me. And now, how I understand the Bible will be, like I said, will be different from how people understand it. In so saying, let me make this example. Like I said, the scripture where Moses was leading a nation from Egypt, where they were slaves, to Israel, where they were free. Yeah? When they got there, God gave them a list, or maybe Mela or whatever, told them what they need to do, how they need to live there. Now, if I were to, if ke manolla lentswe le, this is how I see it in my relation, or in relation to South Africa and what has happened, or in relation to Africans. Remember, during apartheid, we were not allowed to worship God in our way, or how we wanted. Yeah? We were only allowed to worship God through Christianity. Yeah? And then Moses, in the likes of Nelson Mandela, Steve Biko, and certain all other freedom fighters, led us from apartheid, which was Egypt, to democracy, which is Israel. Yeah? And when we got to Israel, which is the democracy, God gave us guys, I've given you talents, I've given you gifts. Now use those gifts to worship me. When I've given you the powers to heal people, as a Sango, use that gift to worship me. When I've given you the gift of singing, use that gift to worship me. Yeah? Now you must remember, even on in Israel, there were people who were slaves who still thought, who were still remember, oh, this is how we ate in this is how we ate in Egypt, even though we were slaves, but we always had good foods, we always had this and that, this and that. Né? Even today, it's still happening, where people who were enslaved, who only knew God from a Christian point of view, they are still saying how maybe an African spiritualist see God is wrong, because this is how they knew God, which is a mind of slavery. Thank you. Don't forget to follow the video. Don't forget to follow the YouTube channel, Dr. Masedi TV. Follow me on Facebook, Dr. Masedi Spiritual. and traditional healer. Don't forget to like and share. I'll see you again very soon. Thank you.